Hello and welcome to our special broadcast. I'm Parikshit Luthra. India may have halted its military action against Pakistan for now, but Prime Minister Modi has laid out what could be argued as India's new doctrine against terror. 1. Operation Sindoor will be the new normal. 2. There will be zero tolerance for nuclear blackmail. 3. There shall be no distinction between terrorists and their sponsors. Prime Minister Modi chaired the first Cabinet Committee on Security meeting since the government has already rejected claims that US and China intervened to broker a ceasefire deal between the two nations. US President Trump, however, reiterated his earlier claim that he did a good job convincing India and Pakistan to pause military actions. In an interview with Fox News aboard Air Force One, he reiterated that he did not like what was happening between the two nations. Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan and the Tri-Service Chiefs briefed President Droupadi Murmu about Operation Sindoor. The President commended the valour and dedication of the armed forces. To take this forward, we have now with us former Deputy National Security Advisor Satish Chandra. He was also the former Indian Ambassador to Pakistan. And also joining us is Meera, Shankar, former Indian Ambassador to the US. Ambassador Chandra, if I can begin with you, how do you think Donald Trump's statements, and he went on to say yesterday, he claimed credit for the fourth time for bringing India and Pakistan to a ceasefire. He said probably the leaders of the two countries should go for dinner together, should have a nice dinner together. Why do you think this has happened? And where does this leave India-US relations, according to you?
Well, I don't think one can take what Trump says at face value. It's not only on this issue, on many other issues in the past. He has made certain statements which are completely incorrect. The classic one on this, of course, is that India and Pakistan have been warring for 1,000 years or something like that. So I really don't take it seriously, and I don't think anyone should either. Really, I think the facts speak for themselves. And on that, I'd like to underline that it isn't that Trump got the two leaders together to have this understanding on ceasefire. It is the Pakistani DGMO who actually contacted our DGMO and requested for a stoppage of the confrontation on the border. So really, I don't think Trump had anything to do with it. Certainly, India didn't make any such request to him or to anyone else, because why should it be necessary for India to do it, given the fact that we have imposed such heavy punishment on Pakistani targets, including critical air bases deep within Pakistan. So I think this is a story which is just what I said it is. It's a story and not based on any type of reality. As regards the relations between India and USA.
Okay, Ambassador Chandra, I'd also like to ask you that now we have an understanding not to fire, to stop military action at the border between India and Pakistan. This is the result of DGMO talks. India maintains that Operation Sindoor will continue. There is no change on the Indus Waters Treaty or any other trade or business relations or economic relations with Pakistan. But how do we ensure that we effectively corner Pakistan in the days to come? When we formally have any sort of understanding on a ceasefire, what should be the contours of any such agreement, according to you?
Look, we have Pakistan on the mat, and I think what the Prime Minister said is clear, and that is the way we will go, is that we will judge Pakistan not so much by what it says, but by what it does. And should there be any type of action, military action particularly by Pakistan, or a terrorist action by them, there would be retribution which would probably be of a higher order than what has happened so far. And you had asked also about India-US relations. I may add on that The relationship between India and US stands on its own. I think there has been a lot of progress over the years with earlier governments and with this one as well. And that will work out on its own. However, I must say that one is a little bit disappointed with the US actions that have gone on so far in terms of equating India and Pakistan. I think that's wrong. I think if the US wants to stand against terrorism, it should clearly come out against Pakistan. And I think this has been noted all over India, and certainly that will be kept in mind, I'm sure.
All right. Ambassador Shankar, to welcome you to the program. As someone who's watched India-US relations closely, every US president in the past has stood for US interests. All of them do that. Perhaps Donald Trump is more direct in doing so. Having said that, do you think the kind of remarks that Donald Trump has made, tweeting about the ceasefire well before the Indian side could make any announcement or make any press conference or could give any feelers to their own media or people about it, do you think the kind of comments he's made, does that in a way impact India-US relations at all, especially at a time when we're discussing a trade deal?
I think that it will blow over because the substantive aspect of the relationship still stands, both in terms of the economic and technological engagement and in terms of the strategic convergence to some extent in the Indo-Pacific. But I would say that the US has not handled it diplomatically. In the past too, there have been US interventions because one standard theme has been the danger of nuclear escalation. And that is something that neither the US wants nor the world wants. So each time there is a kind of an engagement, a military engagement between India and Pakistan, I think this kind of background pressure to bring it to an early halt comes into play. Now, for India, I think, as far as I know, the whole Operation Sindoor was about messaging. It was not intended to destroy Pakistan, to destroy its nuclear assets, because these are things which are not, within the realm of responsible policy. I think, but what India wanted to convey was that between doing nothing and showing strategic restraint and going in for an all-out conflict, India is going to use that intermediate space to retaliate if there is an act of terrorism against India. And I think that messaging has gone on. So if you see yes.
Yeah, Ambassador Shankar, you maintain that India has managed to send out a strong message, not just to Pakistan, but and the world. But if in this crisis, if we had to identify nations which came to India's support and which did not, what would those be in terms of direct support in the military operation or even diplomatically?
Look, as far as the military operation is concerned, a country as large as India, which is taking the initiative to launch a response, a military response, will have to do it on its own. And I think we have to be very clear about that. But many countries, condemned Pahalgam, and there was a UN Security Council resolution also saying that the perpetrator should be brought to book. And in UN discussions, countries such as France, Russia, Israel said India had the right to self-defense, though some qualified it. In the US, I think the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, said that India had the right to self-defense. I think the State Department was more keen on bringing an early end to the conflicts. Now, inadvertently, what happens in this process of giving priority to de-escalation is that a moral equivalence is drawn between the victim of terrorism and its right to respond and the perpetrators of terrorism. And I think that is unfortunate because it sends a very wrong message to the world that, you can get away with it if you use the threat of nuclear blackmail. And I think that is what India wanted to demolish. This myth that because of nuclear deterrence, there are no options that India has to respond to the provocation posed by the terrorist act against innocent civilians in Pahalgam. So I think for India, a ceasefire was not unwelcome. In fact, we signaled that right in the beginning. We didn't attack military targets. And after the attack on the terrorist camps, our military spokesman said, our statement said justice has been served, basically saying we are prepared to let it rest, not carry it further, but the ball is in Pakistan's court. And Pakistan chose to respond recklessly, attacking our military facilities, and we responded forcefully against that. So I think we were not, in a sense, opposed to a ceasefire because we also did not want a long, drawn-out engagement.
And we had been saying from the very beginning that our action was only against terror camp. In fact, that was the only objective of the operation. It was not to attack or be the aggressor against Pakistan as it was made out. Ambassador Chandra, if I can get you in at this point. Now, the United States has also been an arms supplier to Pakistan historically. What do you think was at stake for Donald Trump vis-a-vis Pakistan? What was important? Why was it important for him to make sure that this conflict stops? US had been in touch with both nations. India has made it very clear that we did not get anybody to mediate. It was Pakistan which rushed to the US. This was something we solved bilaterally. But what is the United States' stake in Pakistan as of now?
Well, Pakistan, as you know, has been a pet child of the US for many, many, many decades. And it still continues to have strong links with Pakistan. It has supplied arms. It has certainly been behind the move, which I think was something which was very unfortunate, of allowing the IMF money to be supplied to Pakistan at a time when it was in a military engagement with India. I mean, if they really wanted to put Pakistan to deal with this crisis and put an end to the fighting, it should have stopped the money supplies through the IMF, because had that been done, this fighting would have been stopped in its tracks, because Pakistan is bankrupt. It could not afford to fight if money was stopped. And this was a very easy option, which the US, if it wanted to be even-handed or friendly or even friendly to India, it would have done so. But I want to add another dimension to this, and that is that what has happened is really not new, in the sense that Pakistan has come out with the nuclear dangers and the threat of nuclear dangers in the past. This is history. It repeated history. And yes, the US, for its own reasons, perhaps used this and wanted to put an end to fighting. But as I stated earlier, a much easier way of doing so, without appearing to support Pakistan, it should have stopped the funding. And the fighting would have stopped ab initio. So I really do fault the US on this account. But to reiterate, the US has had a very long relationship with Pakistan. They have close links at multiple levels. And those links continue and they will continue. And as far as
perhaps
India is
that's
concerned,
why
we should be prepared to fight our own battles with
and perhaps
Pakistan
that was the
directly.
reason. And that was the reason why Donald Trump intervened and took credit for bringing the two countries to a ceasefire, even though we're not using the term ceasefire, and neither we have acknowledged. In fact, the Ministry of External Affairs has gone on record to say that there was no discussion on trade in any of the conversations with the United States since Operation Sindoor began. Ambassador Chandra, Ambassador Shankar, thank you very much for joining us. We're taking a break on the program. Up next, we turn the spotlight on India's indigenous defense arsenal and its role in Operation Sindoor.